All right, so welcome everybody to the Advanced Manifestation Community Training for today. And today we have my magical partner, Ben Cussel, and we are talking about his story today. It's a case study on his story. And basically, his whole story is going from barely enough to being wealthy. So exciting testimonial today. And what's really cool about this is that this is Ben's first time sharing his story. So I hope you guys enjoy this and are inspired as well. So we're going to just dive right in. Are you ready, Ben?
Yeah, absolutely. Just I want to say thank you for being here to listen to my story. I get to talk about me. I get to talk about money. I love talking about money. So I'm really happy to be here with you guys today.
Yeah, that's so exciting. Okay. Many of you guys haven't actually met Ben yet. So this is Ben. We met about 5.5 years ago here in Australia when I was traveling and have been creating life together ever since. So, Ben, basically, I'm just going to ask you a few questions and to sort of guide us through this story. But the first question really is before you met me, which was about 5.5 years ago, like what was your life like? And what was your relationship to money? What was happening?
Oh, geez, good question. My relationship to money. Let me start with that. I always, like my whole life, I always wanted to figure out money. Like I didn't even know what that was or meant when I was sort of becoming an adult, but I always knew I wanted to do that. And I was sort of 35, 36 when I met you, and I absolutely hadn't done that at all. My relationship with money was basically that it was always in that level of just enough to pay the bills. If any sort of outlandish, unexpected bill came out, we were really in trouble. And I'd been in that phase for quite a long time. So that was really, really starting to wear on me. And I was really getting to this point where I was like, I need to sort this out. I'm not happy with this at all. And I had absolutely no idea how to do that, none whatsoever. My whole idea at the time, I think, was to start a cafe, which would have been a completely terrible idea. Um, but that's sort of where my thinking was. And in terms of a job, I used to work in a retail store like anyone else probably. And it done that for 12 years. It was not fun anymore.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So, what was your, had you tried to make more money or shift careers or anything like that before?
I actually hadn't tried any of those things really because I felt really stuck. I actually just felt really stuck in a loop in terms of the job I was in. It made just enough money. I lived in a small town, and the job allowed me to be more present with my kids. It gave me time to do things with my kids when I needed to. And anything I moved to was either going to be significantly more travel time, significantly more work, and that would have to come with significantly more money, which it didn't really do. So I'd sort of, I mean, I say stuck. I'd really got myself stuck in my mind, but that's where I was, and I'd been there for quite a long time. I'd been trying to leave that job for over 5 years.
Mhm. What do you think, in your consciousness at that time, what do you think was stopping you? I mean, you said a few of those things there. Was there anything else that was sort of keeping you making the same choice and not really being able to think outside the box for yourself?
Yeah, really, really simple. I mean, obviously, I touched on my mental mindset around it. That was really big, but it was also just the people around me. Like, I didn't have people around me who knew how to do anything, who knew how to do any of this stuff, who knew how to take risks, who knew the money making space. Like, I didn't know that as a, I didn't have those people as influences around me. I didn't have those people to learn from, to emulate from, or even just to have those conversations with. So anyone who was sort of making money, they just seemed like they were these magic, like they had some sort of magic powers that was off in the distance that I had no idea how to access. And I was very jealous of those people, I have to say.
Right? It always seems like when you're not there, it always seems like, the heck? There must be missing something, or those people are just not like me. And especially when we're judging ourselves and we're sort of in that box, it feels it hurts. I can totally relate to all of that. All right, so what had you even start thinking that you could change your life?
My life got really shit. I separated from my partner, and that was really tough. It turned out to be a real blessing, but it was really, really tough to go through. And it was a prolonged event that sort of went, the separation sort of took 2 years, which was very, very difficult. And I really got into some very, very low spaces and places. And I knew that I had to change my life. Like, I knew that if I didn't make significant changes to my life, that probably suicide was where I was going to end up, because it was just, it just, I was doing that for another 20 years. That was not going to be okay. And, and that wasn't coming from external people. That was coming from me. And I really felt that way. Uh, which sounds horrible. It was a great motivator, and it really got me moving. And it opened up some really, really fantastic things to happen in my life. So, it's turned out in the end. We can say that.
Well, we're not at the end, but it's turned out until now.
It's the truth.
I hope we're not at the end. Anyway, so okay, so what was the moment that you were like, all right, I need to make this choice? Like, what was the choice that really took you on a different timeline?
So, okay, so that's really interesting. I started managing a bottle shop, or a small chain of bottle shops in Australia, in probably about 2006. And I remember very clearly when I started there, they said to me, if you're here in 10 years, you get 3 months annual leave. Like, that was a bonus. And I thought very clearly, if I'm here in 10 years, I'm probably going to kill myself. 12 years later, I was still there. And I was, like I said, in a really, really low place. And that was when I was like, I need to make some sort of change. I was lucky enough that I had about 6 months annual leave, like, banked, and I had no idea what to do. And my goal was, I'm going to take this 6 months off. And in my head, I was going to start a business in 6 months and make that profitable in 6 months and never have to go back to that job again. Uh, that didn't happen. But what did happen is, the choice was pretty uncomfortable within itself, because I knew I was using this asset that I had in these 6 months off. Um, so it was an uncomfortable choice. I knew I was using that. I didn't know what was going to come out of it. In my head, I was starting a coffee shop, which was never going to work. The first week of that time off is the week I met Cory on Tinder, totally randomly. And when I look back, I really think, like, if it wasn't for me taking that time off, I wouldn't have had the space to be with Cory, to develop the relationship and to learn the things I learned. It wouldn't have happened. I was too stuck in the day to day of what I was doing, in terms of work and kids and all those things. So that was really the choice that started me going, in a new direction. So.
It's so cool. I love how we met and how the timing on that happened. Where it was literally that Monday was his first day on his 6 month, you know, journey of what else is possible. And we ended up swiping right on a Wednesday, and then we met on Friday. So that catalyzed very quickly. So, okay, so we got you meet me, and it wasn't like, lightning hits and there's a magical new reality and all of a sudden you're different, right? Because I was
Oh,
already functioning in a different place with money, obviously traveling Australia for 6 weeks, able to do what I wanted in life, having this great business, doing things that I'm inspired by, contributing to people. Like, my life was already there. So what was it like for you seeing how I was being from your state of consciousness at that time?
yeah, great question. It was equally uncomfortable, and also I was very intrigued. I was very like, I whatever this chick has, I want to know more about this. As long as she's willing to spend time with me, I'm willing to spend time with her and learn. I want to know as much as I can. And it was challenging. I mean, it's challenging, and the real difference here is that, let me explain this. When people know how to create money, they have a freedom with money. But if you don't know how to create money, you don't have that freedom. And I didn't have it, and Cory did have it. So she had a freedom with spending money that I was it was very challenging for me to watch. And also, it was her money; she could do whatever she wanted to do, of course. Uh, for me, it was challenging, and also it was a real inspiration in terms of I want to be able to function like this, and I want to be able to have that same freedom with money if I choose, and freedom with life as well. So it was really quite an inspiration.
Yeah. Oh, it was so cool to see you over time continue to start to choose things for you that because what Ben used to do, my observation of how he one of the ways he was functioning is that he wouldn't choose anything for himself unless it was a necessity, right? Because everything went to the kids, to the household, and that's how they were functioning for a while, right, or a long time. And so when Ben started to really shift and choose things for himself was so cool because it was like, oh, he's freeing himself up from that small little box he was functioning in to be able to start to have more ease and play with actually receiving, right? That was really cool.
Oh,
I loved seeing you do that.
thank you, and you're 100% correct. Nothing was for me, and it was uncomfortable to choose for me, and it gradually over time changed to the point where one of my dreams was always to have my own home gym. So I set that up last year, and it was fantastic.
He never bought anything for himself, and now we have deliveries of gym equipment on a weekly basis, practically.
So
And Ben told me, I asked him, when was that I asked you? It was a while ago. I asked him, what would you do if you didn't have to work for money? And what did you tell me?
I said I would train all day.
And I said, really? It's like you train all day? Like, what would that even look like? It was so beyond anything I would want to do. But it's so in his consciousness. So now, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, I still work, but I work because I enjoy the work I'm doing. But I train every day, and it's not only it makes my body feel great, it makes my mental health fantastic. As long as I'm moving regularly, I'm in a pretty good mental space. And I probably spent almost 10 grand on gym equipment last year just because I was a little worried we were going to get locked down forever. And so I went and did that, and it's been fantastic. And you can't see it. I'm in my office now, but probably about a quarter of my office is work stuff, and the other 75% is a gym. So
I think it's more like a sixth.
it could be.
We'll have
And
to put up a picture of it.
that was always, everyone has those winning the lottery dreams. What are you going to do? That was one of my winning the lottery dreams, but it didn't take winning the lottery.
Right. It didn't take winning the lottery to have the experience that you wanted to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I got to say too that when Ben positioned so we have this house and we have this media room which has his office in now. It was the media room with the TV and everything, and the kids would play video games. And so Ben came to me one day and said, "Hey, what if we make the media room like my office and slash gym?" And I was like, "What?" Like, huh. And then it was a little while later, I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. Cause then I'll take your office and make it my own lounge. So I have a whole wing of the house now where he has this huge room that has his office gym in it. That's his dream. And I have this own little space of mine that's really nice as well. So it worked out nicely. Um, so it's interesting how things can rearrange to manifest the desired experience you would like to have. So let me move on to the next question here. Um, okay, so So what was your journey with sort of realizing that while you wanted to make more money, while you wanted to have more ease with money and all of that stuff, what was that big epiphany that had you really step into the energy? Because Ben didn't know anything about manifestation, nothing about energetic mastery, nothing about any of this. He had read one personal growth book, and that was it when I met him, right? So he was not, he was like, "Oh, I'm not into this energy stuff, but I like what you're talking about." So what was the turning point when you really went, "You know what? I got to shift this energy." What was that?
Well, as you're saying that, I'm actually thinking of two things that were quite significant. And one was when I met you, I was ready to admit that I didn't know how to fix what I was trying to do. I didn't know how to do what I was trying to do. So I
Mm,
was willing to learn anything. So even though the energy stuff didn't mean a lot to me, some of it made sense, but also I was like, okay, if this is working for other people, I'm happy to give this a go. I'm happy to jump in and learn whatever I can learn. After we'd been together for about a year, I think we were doing an ALCP in New Zealand, and Corey had us writing down our energetic priorities, and mine was wealth and money. And I thought that if I wrote it down as one of my energetic priorities, according to Corey, this was my mindset. According to Corey, if I wrote it down, it would magic itself into existence, right? It's like just write it down. So I literally wrote it on a piece of paper, put the piece of paper aside, didn't look at it for 6 months. It did not magic itself into existence. I know some people say that works. For me, that didn't work. I then pulled out the piece of paper. I went, what even is what even is wealth? I don't even know what that is. I have no idea what that even means. What is that? I went to do a Google search and I Googled what is it that wealthy people know? And it said three things. It said they know all their incomings and outgoings of money. They know where all their money is. They know the tax system and they know how to invest. And that's when I had the epiphany of just like, it was a really simple, oh, like if that's all I have to do, I'm just going to become the person who knows those things. And that's what really started me moving forward was when I started doing that. And even though I say writing it down, it didn't work. Well, it didn't work until I started taking some actions, and then it really started to move. And like anything, it's like a funnel. It probably moves slow at first, and then we went down the funnel and started moving faster and faster and faster and faster. And yeah, now it's moving pretty fast, which is fantastic.
It turns out Ben has a genius with money and wealth and finances. So much so that he started working with my company. But when he left his job, let me rewind a little bit. Ben works with me now. He has for 4 years, I think. We're coming on 4 years. Yeah, it's like this month, 4 years, isn't it? Oh, that's so cool. We'll have to go celebrate that. Um, but when I first met him, I didn't think there was any assets he had of working in my company. Like, so that wasn't even on my radar for a long time. I was like, well, I wonder what he's going to do. I have no idea what he's going to do to change this for himself. And one of the things that's so great about Ben is that he's very curious and um, he engages. And so he's just like, hey, can I help you with some stuff in your business? And then he started learning things and he learned more things and he learned more things. So I hired him to work with me doing, I don't even remember what it was. Like there was
It's
some video,
marketing.
it was what, marketing?
Marketing.
And yeah, so marketing. Turns out he is amazing with the finances. So he has taken the company finances and done a whole zippity doo dah on it all and learned all of these different aspects very quickly to be able to manage our company finances in a way that is very, I would say, solid and allows us to continue to grow on the financial side. So that's been amazing. But he didn't know he didn't know you had that skill, that genius within you.
No, I didn't know that at all. And you're right. We've, in the time we've been working together, the company always made good sales, but it didn't make good profit. And now we're lucky enough to make good sales and good profit.
Yeah.
And it was really applying those principles of, from the Google search in terms of, you know, knowing where all the money's going and coming, and the tax stuff and the investment stuff.
Right. Exactly. And it's been a huge help to me in within the business and helping me run the business. So that's been a great. So he's now the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer of the company, which is amazing. And it's so great to see him stepping into his genius. Now, Ben, I want you to share with everybody what money is like for you now, what money and wealth. So you had this energetic priority of creating and having money and wealth. What's it like now?
I used to hate this saying, but money has sort of become like a game for me now. And I've heard people say that before, and I was like, fuck you. I don't want to hear that. But really, when you get to that place, it does feel like that. It is, it is become a game, and it's like this game I manage, and I see opportunities all the time. I probably get 2 or 3 money opportunities a week, more than I can properly assess. And it is, where are we going to play our game this week, and what are we going to play with, and how can it grow? And it's a game I really, really enjoy playing. I have a lot of fun doing it, and yeah. So and then there's the amazing days. Sometimes it's like you make 20 grand a day, and the first time you do that, you sort of fall out of your chair. But then once it becomes more common, you're sort of like, wow, this is just great. We'll have more of this.
Yeah, I
Mm.
love that. I think money's a game. And one of the keys to having money be a game is knowing that you can create the money. Right. It's shifting that particular perspective. And sometimes that's really locked into your subconscious of I don't know how to create money, and because it's been stuck for a while. That's where it was for me, at least, is very stuck and like I don't know how to create money. But once you unlock that for yourself, because you can all create money, every one of us has access to that, and it's going to be different for everybody. But once that's unlocked, then you can actually play the game. You can't play the game when we're um, not realizing it's a game and not knowing that we can create money. Cool. Um, so this is all really cool. So I'm curious for you guys watching, what are you getting for yourself with this conversation through Ben's journey? And let me see if I have any other questions here. Is there anything else that you feel like is important to share?
Uh, I had something. I really like what you said, that money is a game, and the subconscious stuff really is important. I know that doing the stuff with you in the 5D Vibe Tribe has really, really helped me, release some of those subconscious blocks. And when you think about it, I mean, those blocks are like instilled in us from our parents. Their parents instilled it into them. It's like this generational thing that we're taught. We're definitely not taught that money is a game as young people. So that stuff is so deep, and so hard to consciously identify and let go of.
And it's really hard when you're trying all the things, or even you're reading the books or you're doing the things, but you don't know or you haven't acknowledged where your subconscious is functioning from. Because what happens is it's like icing on a poo pie. We try and try and try and try and try, but our subconscious runs 95% of our choices, runs our energy field. So if we're going at a 95 against 5, who's going to win? Your subconscious is going to win until we start working with the energy, start shifting our choices, and really shift that subconscious identity to be who you are stepping into being, like what you're inspired by, right? Where what your targets are, what you desire, what you want to manifest, right? So if you have any questions for Ben, please post them in the chat. I'm watching the chat. So Jennifer, our friend in Canada, has a question. Ben, do you have a role model for being open to learning new things? Often men don't want help.
Do I have a role model to be open for learning new things? I probably have a number of role models, but I don't have a specific role model. One thing I know about me, well, I probably learnt this from one of my mum's boyfriends. He told me when I was young just to get in and try things and do them to the best of your ability, no matter where you're at. And I've always had zero problem being absolutely shit at things. So I'm quite happy when I come to new tasks to just jump in and give it my best. I don't really have a role model. I think what you're asking is there someone that that I follow that other men can learn from? I don't know who that could be. It's really the individual, up to them.
Well, I think the other thing that we could address here with that is that you don't have an ego about I gotta I gotta handle this all myself, which could be a male or a woman or a man, right? That's doing
Yeah.
that. Like a lot of women do that of like I can do this all myself, right? But men do it, I think, as well in different areas, potentially maybe same areas. You don't have a lot of that.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think ego is a really interesting thing. I think it shows up differently for different people. I think it does show up differently for men and women. Um, it's a good question. Anyone who's talking about the ego, like if you meet a man who's actually interested in learning about the ego and how that works and how that affects people and themselves, that's probably a pretty good sign.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that was really key for us even being in a relationship because I obviously could see where you were at. And because you were willing, wanted more, and you were willing to take on some new ideas, I knew that there was something that we could potentially create. If you had been closed off or egotistical and not wanting any of the brilliance that I have, in creating transformation with people, then our relationship never would have worked.
Well, I think that's a really good point, and that probably ties into values as well, because me and you have Corey and I have very similar values, particularly when it comes to money, but also when it comes to our own personal development. Now, she was 10 or 15 years ahead of me in that journey, but that's only to my advantage. I get to grow quicker.
See, you need a man like that. Like, wait a second, I like this. All right, cool. Well, we've got a few other questions here, but we've been going for about 30 minutes. But I want to share with you guys, we are doing a live mini class next week all about raising your financial set point forever. So we are going to go through the top 5 elements that Ben and I have both learned that we feel like would is really going to assist people in raising their set point. And this isn't just about money; it's actually about your whole consciousness, which is why I can say confidently forever. Um, when you address these 5 elements that we're going to be addressing, then it's like you shift consciousness like Ben did, and you go on a totally different trajectory, a different timeline. And this is where honestly quantum leaps happen, is when we shift our consciousness, not just go after, like a lot of people talk about, like let's manifest this or manifest that. And I think that's, manifesting 101. But when you shift to a whole reality that's on a different timeline where there is plenty of money, for example, then you don't have to manifest for this or this or this. You have a whole life that has plenty. Completely different consciousness than if you're going after things, manifesting them. So I would love to, and Ben would love to contribute to you guys in raising that set point. So here's the details. I'm going to pop the link in here. It's just 37 bucks US. 37 bucks. It's going to be 2 hours long. Next week, all the details are on this link. We're going to go through the 5 essentials. And we're going to do one of the super conscious shift sessions and transmute all of the places that you've been stuck in this old set point. And they come from your past, they come from past lives, they come from the energy of your parents, of where they were functioning from, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So we're going to transmute that energy and we're going to step into what is your new set point. What would you like your new set point to be? So this is the work you're actually going to do. And then we're going to anchor that in. Okay? So if that sounds like something that would benefit you, join us, 37 bucks. And it's part of the 5D Vibe Tribe that I offer, where we do these super conscious shift sessions and transmute the energies holding us back, are keeping us from being our future selves and manifesting everything that we desire as if by magic, automatically, because who doesn't want that? We do this every single week. So this is one class that you can join to sort of get a taste of what we're doing over there. And if it resonates, come and join us. It's going to be so much fun. So, with that said, let's answer the rest of the questions here. Oh no, they're all down at the bottom. Ben, do you want to add anything else about the class while I
Yeah,
find these
I mean,
questions?
this is the first time I've ever taught a class with Corey. If there is an area I could contribute to people, it is with money. And I really like what we've put together in terms of the five elements. I think they're a really nice blend of energy and pragmatic things to do. And I think that combination works really well together. I know that I look at more of the pragmatic stuff, Corey's more the energy stuff, and together that's just created so much for us. So, for anyone who's on the class, I think it's going to create for you too. And I hope you join us.
Yeah. I love our dynamic duo with money. It just, every year we just create more and more. And we look at our targets together, and which we're not really going to target about couples, but that could be a thing in the future if people are interested. But we look at everything together, and then we also look at everything separately. What does he want? What do I want? Where does that combine to, and how can we contribute to each other in living our life um, from the most fun and magical ways? And it just continues to expand in these really crazy ways. It's like unbelievable sometimes. Okay, so Jennifer's saying, I love it. So open to even being vulnerable that you can be shit at stuff. Yeah, Ben is one of the most vulnerable men I've ever met, which is one of the things I love about him. Okay, so Wanda is asking, what do you do first if you run into something you don't know how to do? Like when you started to learn about finances.
Well, I think Google and YouTube are amazing resources for that. I mean, I know that they have their issues, but I have learned so much stuff. Excuse me. I've learned so much stuff from Google and YouTube. When I first started working with Corey, I could barely open an email. I now, do almost all the tech stuff within her business. And all of my learning has come from, I haven't paid for a single tech course to learn that. It's all come from mostly YouTube in terms of how do I do XYZ, and I find a video, or Googling things.
Mhm.
So if I'm really not sure, that's my go-to. And sometimes you even don't know the question to ask, and that's fine. I just ask a question that's as close as I can think I can get to it. And often within that video, I find they'll put me onto something. I'm like,
Mhm.
that's the thing I'm actually looking for. So
So I
that's
think it's
how I.
the willingness to look for it instead of being stuck. I don't know how to do this. Right? Like Ben's kids used to always say, "Oh, I don't know how. I don't know how." And Ben's like, "Oh my god, it's so easy. Like, like
Yeah,
let's just go
that's
find
really,
it."
and I still find myself that I get stuck in that. I'm like, I've had this thing I've wanted to do for a month. I don't know how to do it. And I'm like, hold on, what am I actually saying to myself? That's really stupid. Just go to YouTube. So
Just find it on YouTube. Everything's on YouTube. And I think I would add the other element that you did that I also did, which is surround myself with people having a different conversation. Right?
mm,
Because you're going to get ideas, you're going to get inspired. You're also going to get their energy and their frequency. So, like when I came into Ben's life, I had a different frequency that I was functioning from specifically with money. And so he got to actually start to harmonize. He didn't do it on purpose, but he was really, his system by choosing to be with me and be around me was harmonizing with where I was at the time. And then now we just harmonize together to continue to expand. So the people around you make a massive difference about the money that you're making. So if you're around people that are struggling a lot, if you're around people that are discounting you or judging you for your dreams or putting you down, you really, really, really want to consider. adding people to your life that are having a different conversation and one that inspires you, because that's where you'll really start getting those awarenesses, the downloads, and also they're going to give you ideas, right? And show you it's possible. All right, Kathy Johnson's asking, Ben, what would you advise us to get involved in to change our financial situation?
It's a good question. I would advise you to buy the course the $37 course that Cory just mentioned, because that will go through some of the, like, there's so many opportunities out there. There really are so many opportunities out there. There's thousands of them coming across our plates every day. There's more wealth around the world than there's ever been. And there's actually more transition of wealth going from the bottom to the top than there's ever been as well. Uh, it really is. So I would advise you to get your structural stuff right first. And we're going to go through some of that in the How to Increase Your Financial Set Point course. So I would say get that, because that's a good place to start. You can start learning a few things. But for me, I got that structural stuff. I started building that first. And when I sort of got that in place, that was when I started investing in things and looking for opportunities. I didn't do it the other way around.
Yeah, I did it the other way around.
She did.
But we're going to go through the top 5 things. So that would probably be a great place to start if you're resonating with this conversation and you'd like to know more about what we've got going on, in terms of what we've done and what we can facilitate here in a couple of hours. So there's that. Do you guys have any more questions? Let me scroll down here. This is great. I love working with Cory too. I love working with you too, Mary Ann. YouTube, and then I find great coaches, says Jennifer. Let's see here. I love the idea of always having plenty instead of suddenly having to manifest more. For each new thing is exhausting. It is exhausting, and it also is from lack. Because why wouldn't you have plenty for that next thing? Right? So it's a total mindset shift when we start functioning from plenty instead of just trying to manifest things one by one.
Can
What
I
did I
touch on
just
the exhausting thing, Cory?
Yeah, can I just say my last sentence here?
Yeah, sorry.
100%. So if we're functioning from this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing, then you're actually making you the center of the creation versus your field of consciousness that's always creating for you. And that's definitely an advanced manifestation concept of having your whole field be already creating the experience you want before you even ask for it. Yeah. Go ahead, Ben.
Cool. So with the exhausting, when you're learning something new, it totally is exhausting. And I believe you only have so much brain power that can function in any one time. And if you're constantly learning new things, you use a lot of that brain power. Excuse me. But once you've learned these things, it doesn't take a lot of brain power to repeat them. So once you've sort of learnt, especially with cryptocurrency stuff where there's a lot of opportunities, once you've learned how to buy cryptocurrency and transfer it and move it and look at these different opportunities, it gets easier and easier and easier over time. But the other thing you get clear with is your time. And in terms of, I get stuff presented to me all the time and I say, it could well be great. I actually just haven't got the time to look at that right now. And I'm consciously and clear about where I'm going to put my time and energy.
Yeah. So you're not chasing opportunities and thinking I'm going to win the lottery.
It's true.
Now, I want to say one more thing because this was really interesting. When we met, and I think I had moved here, you went and said, "I'm going to buy a lottery ticket," and I went, "Oh, cool." I go, "Okay, whatever." I don't really buy lottery tickets all that much, but I don't really have a perspective on that. And I said, "So what are you going to do when you win the lottery?" What was the first thing you told me? Do you
Was
remember?
that when I said I'd share some of it with my ex?
You said the first thing you said was, "I'm going to buy my ex a house and give her some of it."
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah.
And I went, "Wow, okay, we got some work to do."
You did say that.
Right, because the first thing was it was nothing for him. And whenever we're in that space of giving it all away before you're receiving for your experience, then what we know is there's always going to be more outflow than there's going to be inflow, right? And then if we look at the mechanics of that particular potential creation, could she have received it?
Maybe not. She might have told me to go stuff myself.
Yeah. So then assuming that someone else would want this and you think you're doing a good thing, all of that stuff had to be deconstructed and it happened over time so that he wasn't already pushing his finances, energetic finances away from him. That's a redirect. Okay. Even though it seems good, it seems like, oh yeah, I'm being nice. I'm doing all of these good things. It's not always generative, right? So receiving that money for you and then expanding and then maybe doing that at some point, but really looking from the space after you have created it is a very different conversation. Did you want to say something else about that?
No, no, no. You nailed it.
I know. I was just like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. You just want the money to go back out. All right. So and now Ben is just like, nah, nah, we're keeping it. We're growing it. And he shifted his mindset on that, which is really, really amazing. Okay. So we have a question here from Michelle Ann. Nice name, Michelle. And how do you stay unattached to the outcome? How do you stay unattached to the outcome, Ben?
That's a really good question. I don't have a clear answer for you. You get better at it. You get
Mm-hmm.
better at it. Excuse me. You start to realize when you're constructing those outcomes in your mind and you start to rein yourself in and pull yourself back. Okay. And it's like going to the gym. It's like reps in the gym. You've got to keep doing it. You've got to keep catching yourself and just reining yourself back in. Not making yourself wrong for doing it, but just reining yourself in. And over time, you start to get better at it. Also, I think when I'm inspired by something, I'm really enjoying the process of it, and I'm not spending as much time in the outcome of it. So I really enjoy learning, and people say that, like the real success is in the process. I think there's a lot of truth in that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're really enjoying the learning process, I think that's a good sign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I would add to that, um, staying out of the attachment is essential. How do you do that? Ben said it's a process. I 100% agree with that because what the attachment is showing you is where you're functioning from, what you're unwilling to lose, oftentimes. So I know, Michelle, you asked about, if you have a deadline for money to come in, right? You have to pay rent or a bill or something like that. Then if there's the immediate, like I'm attached to the thing that you want to avoid if you don't pay the rent, right? So I've been close or late on rent a number of times in my lifetime, especially when I had so much debt and I wasn't making a lot of money. So I really get that personally. What was I afraid of? I was afraid of losing my house. I was afraid of looking bad. I was afraid that I would be homeless. I was afraid that it was never going to change, right? So when you really get real about what you're really afraid of losing, then you can go, okay, I'm afraid of losing that. And this chasing money to be the answer to not losing things is all coming from lack. So if we shift that and go, well, wait a second, what I really want is not to not lose something. I really want to have ease with something, right? So maybe ease with paying rent and all the bills, right? Might be a start. So if you start saying every day, hey, what would it be like if I had ease to in paying all of my bills and having plenty of money to do that? What would that be like? What would that be like? And start tuning in to that version of you that has that consciousness. Okay? Because that version of you is different than the version of you who's afraid you're not going to have enough. Okay? And that's partly how we get out of attachment is shifting our consciousness to this future self that already has what you would like. But oftentimes what happens is we don't even get to what we would really like because we are still functioning over here from, I still need the money to pay the bill. Okay. And then if we back it up just a little bit more, and this is where I was, is there was always that next bill to pay. So I was always, yeah, there is a little reverb. Ben, can you put yourself on mute real quick? Yeah. Okay, there we go. That's gone now. Thank you for that. Okay, so if I was always chasing that next money to pay that next thing, that's an addiction, right? What are we addicted to? There's also the energetic addictions of scarcity, and then am I going to succeed or not? And then one of the things that I find that oftentimes really, really brilliant manifestors do is they're manifesting to create the magic. They're manifesting to say, I did it, and to have that success of coming through at the last minute. And that's an energetic addiction. Why? It puts us on a roller coaster. Okay. It puts us in the highs and then it puts us in the lows. Right. And so when we're doing that to ourselves, one of the biggest things that you can gift yourself is mastering the energy of calm. Okay. Because if you master the energy of calm, you can start to see when you're starting to feel anxious or feel fearful or frustrated, right? Whenever we're doing that, that's going to activate the stories, right, from the past, which all just repeats patterns. And then it's going to activate you behaving in a certain way, making certain choices. And those choices are usually not the most aware ones. They're usually from panic, from fear, from lack. Okay. But when we can come back to a calm space, we go, all right, what is available for me here? Okay. What is it? What is it that I can do not just to pay this bill, but actually set myself up long term? What am I afraid of losing here? Is that really my fear? And most of the time when I ask people, what's going to happen if you don't have the money for this, or even a bill or the house or whatever, they say, I'm gonna live under a bridge. Everybody says that. Okay, great. You're gonna go live under a bridge. Then what? Well, and then they start thinking of other things, and it usually ends up being not that bad. Like, oh, well, are you really gonna live under a bridge? No. Okay, so what's really that fear, right? So I would look at that. And it's more of a long-term solution, which is what you really need to look at when you're coming from this, up and down sort of energetic addiction to the highs and the lows, getting into calm. So what energy can I be to bring myself to calm in this space with relationship to money, with relationship to this bill? What if bills weren't a problem anymore? So we'll go through some of this stuff in the class next week, as well as do the superconscious shift session where we're going to transmute all the stuff as well. So thanks for asking that question. Okay, sometimes I ask myself, have I ever been homeless so far in my life? Well, I had to live with my mom a couple times as an adult because I took a lot of risks and was functioning in that up and down space. So I was fortunate enough to have her as a fallback, even though I really did not like living with her at the time. That's a whole nother show here. All right, so I think we'll complete this now. Thank you guys so much for joining us live. If you're watching the replay, go ahead and put replay and let us know what you're getting from this conversation. And let's give a big round of applause for his first sharing of his story. How'd he do? I think he did great.
Thank you so much for listening to my story. I found that uncomfortable and challenging, and I'm glad I did it. And I'd love to see you guys on Wednesday.
So this will also be his first time teaching with me, us co-facilitating in this way. I trust that you're gonna rock it as you always do, and we hope to contribute to these new set points. And one last thing I'll say, you did an amazing job. I'm so proud of you to getting to this space because he never, ever, ever, ever would have done anything like this just a few years ago. So that is really cool. Um, and next week, when we increase the financial set point, it's like having a breakthrough of that ceiling, right? And getting your consciousness to go to the other side of what that's going to be like. So you want to, if you're going to join us, you're going to want to identify what your financial set point is. Where's that number that you sort of get stuck at? And then also, what is the energy? How do you feel about that? What is sort of going on with that? And then we're going to dive into deconstructing that and then implementing the new financial set point. Now, what this will do is it's going to raise your foundation up to wherever you say it's going to be, right? So, whatever you're resonant with, and we'll take you through that process, but this will no longer be the set point. Your consciousness will start to function at a higher level after this process. So, all right. Thank you guys for joining us. It says, thank you for sharing. You rocked it, Ben. Thanks so much, Cory and Ben. It's been great to hear your journey with wealth. Yay, Ben. Awesome work. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thanks, you guys, for all the love. All right, you guys. We'll see you if you want to join us next week. If not, we'll see you next week here in the Advanced Manifestation community. All right. We'll see you guys. Bye.